Hello, welcome back to Bebop Review. My name's Andy Shaw. I'm just looking at a comment that was on Barry Harris, the video 2 by Tamir Gal. I think that's how you say his name. He says, hey, thanks, like your videos and all your insights and thoughts on jazz and bebop. Some comments on the Barry review. I'll just try to correct his English a little bit. He says, regarding the 4-3 suspension thing, I believe you've got that part wrong. Barry says that you can think of a 2-5 progression as a 5 suspended 4. I think that's what he means. A 5 suspended 4, 5-1 progression. So the 4 suspension is with regard to the 5 dominant chord rather than the 2 chord, as you say. And then he goes on to say, I don't think Barry is saying that Bird didn't play the changes. I actually think that Barry would think that Bird mostly plays the changes, voice lean as you say, rather than thinks in scale over each chord. I think he just emphasizes that whenever you see a 2-5, just think of the 5 dominant scale or Mixolydian to make the changes, as opposed to other teaching methods where they tell you to think Dorian over the 2 chord. Okay. So he's saying that basically Barry Harris is saying that you use this dominant scale over 2 chord and 5 chord. The thing is, I don't actually see that in Charlie Parker's music, and I'll actually show you some more. What I want to do now is, though, I don't want to carry on with this comment a bit more. I think he said basically what he said, and I think he is actually right. That's what Barry Harris is saying. But Barry Harris makes it confusing the way he puts it across. So I think what we need to do now is to look, risking copyright this is, I'm going to put on a little bit of the Barry Harris DVD so that you can make your mind up yourself what he's saying. And then I'll explain what I think he's saying and what Tamir says he's saying, right? And then I'll show you what Charlie Parker says, hopefully, you know. Okay, so let's have a look at Barry Harris and see what he says now, okay?
When I listened to the rhythm bridge, and I heard the rhythm bridge, we play A-7 to D7, but I heard Bird say, I said, now how could he be playing that D arpeggio against the A-7? So he must not have been thinking of A-7. So he had to be thinking of the D7. So I played that against the A-7, and it works. We, as piano players, really I've come to the conclusion that A-7 to D7 is really a 4-3 suspension. And it's just a case of this note going to that note, and what we have to hear is this. And what piano players say, but really, horn players, D. Bird one time said, now, you can't do that thinking of A-7. You have to think of D7. So this whole tape is going to deal with how you think when you come to examining improvisation, and we're going to try our best to show you that really what you better deal with is the dominant 7th.
Okay, so let's have a look at what Tammy is saying. He says that instead of 2 chord going to 5 here, we have this suspended. So we'll put in key of C, so we can get in G7, suspended 4, going to G7, which is possible. Because a G suspended 4, it's basically the root of the chord. I'll put it here so you can see it easier. The root of the chord is, it's not very good, is it? The root of the chord is dominant, but it's got this 4th instead of 3rd, and then this. So the top of the chord is subdominant, but the root is dominant, isn't it? And then that goes to the F. Now in that situation, that C there is dropping down to that. So you've got 4 going to that 3, aren't you? Even in that situation. The third of this G7 chord, that is. Now, Barry Harris don't actually say that. This is on the tape. This is what Barry Harris is saying, right? If I can try and explain it. We've got A minor 7. We're in the key of G, going to D7, right? He says he sees this chord A minor 7 as a 4/3 suspension, and he plays the note, right? D going to F sharp. Hold on, I've already put F's in there. Going to F sharp, right? Sorry, then he plays a G going to an F sharp. So basically, if we actually fill these in, we can see that it is actually a suspension in it. So that's your D chord, and then if you fill these in, he's actually saying that this is a 4th. He's playing this as a 4th of A minor. So if I fill it in from here, so we've got A, right, C, and then E and G. You can see that by rearranging those notes, I know it looks a bit complicated there, but I'll just rearrange them here. That's where it's playing, but if I actually rearrange them and put it here, you have D, right, G, A, and C. Okay, because that's your C, that's your A. So you've got this G instead. So basically, you have got a suspended chord, just like Tamir says. So that's basically, I think, he's right. That's what he's saying. But instead of seeing it this D, sorry, instead of seeing it as this G going to this F sharp, which would be D7 sus 4th. Instead of actually seeing it as that G going to there, he's seeing it as this D resolving to there, because this D is not part of the A minor 7 chord. So he's seen as this A minor 7 as a kind of suspension. So this root, this D, which is not in the A minor 7 chord, is the suspended going to this third. See, it's a bit complicated, isn't it? If you don't believe me, listen to that bit of tape again. That's how I see he's seeing it. But what it ends up being is that, which is actually a suspended chord, as Tamir says, and that is resolving there, not that there. So it's complicated what he's saying, isn't it? So that's how I see it anyway. Hope you've followed that, you know. So I just want to show you something else. Now, Barry Harris, if you remember, in that video, he says that he listened to the bridge section of I Got Rhythm, and Charlie Parker played a D7 arpeggio, a D arpeggio over A minor, which I'm sure he certainly did. But what gets me is that Barry Harris says that that's how Charlie Parker plays. He plays dominant over a minor chord. And that's a really sweeping statement to make over, just listening to a few records, or, well, you could listen to 10 records, still not get it. That'd still not be the truth. You've got to study hundreds, like loads and loads of solos. I can actually give you, I'm going to give you now a counter argument to that. I want you to look at this here. Hold on. If you look at this here, let me just check that's in focus. If you look at this here, this is Anthropology. It's from the Charlie Parker Omni book. And I want you to look at this last bit here. I don't know if anybody you've seen, there's a music education series called Music Education for All. And there's a guy on there called Mark, and he analyses this little bit, and he can't figure this bit out here. See this with his 2A7 chords, because this is the bridge. The rhythm section bridge usually goes B7, E7, A7, D7, right? Now Barry Harris actually heard it going 2-5, so 2-5, 2-5, 2-5, 2-5. But here we're just getting A7s. Now Barry Harris which says that Charlie Parker over this bridge section plays dominant over these scales, but Mark on Music Education for All had trouble with this. I can't remember what that video is, but if you actually look on his site, Music Education Video, it'll probably still be on. He analyses this here, this bit here. Now I'm going to write that out, right, this bit here, and show you the problem that Mark had, okay? So this is the 2 bars from Anthropology, just here, this bit, if you can see it. Right, I've actually written it down with a key signature so you can see it better. Right, if you look at the notes on beat, right, here and here, you've got basically a G, which is the flat 7th, and you've got this B, which is a 9th. You've got this F sharp, right, which is A, B, C, D, F sharp, which is a 13th, isn't it, over A7, so that's D, yeah, it's 13th. And then you've got this G again, which is the flat 7th, right? Now, looking at that, I wouldn't say that he's playing on A7 with all these tension numbers. Everything's tension into, and then when he gets here, we seem to be back into A7 here. This seems to me to be a substitute. He's playing an arpeggio, which is B flat minor 7, and then it's jumping down, but I don't think it's jumping down to this D7, you see. So just keep your eye on that B flat minor 7. I'll talk about it in a bit. But what I want to talk about is this bit here. This bar doesn't make sense. Now, Mark on Music Education for All, he says it's an example of Charlie Parker playing fancy for all these changes, but it's not. It's not at all. If you actually look, I've written it down again, and this time I've actually changed the chord to show you what Parker's doing. That chord is dominant in the Charlie Parker Omnibook. It's A7, but Charlie Parker's not playing A7. He's playing E minor 7, sorry. He's playing E minor 7. He's playing a 2 chord. He's substituting E minor 7 for that A7 and playing through changes. And now if you look at that, see that G's beautiful. That's the 3rd, isn't it? That's the 5th of E minor 7. That's the 9th. Good tension. And then again, 3rd. So that's a lot better, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's the 3rd, or flat 3rd. That's the 5th. That's the 9th. That's the flat 3rd. So, you know what I mean? It looks to me like he's definitely playing through a 2 chord there, and then going into a 5 chord. And then here, we've got Here we've got B flat minor 7, what it looks like to me, B flat minor 7, because B flat, D flat, F, A flat, yeah, it's B flat minor 7. And that B flat minor 7, I don't think it's going to the D7 chord. That's in the Charlie Parker Omnibook. Parker's not playing that D7. I think he's playing A minor 7, because that goes. Now that is the 5th, isn't it, of A minor 7. So when Barry Harris says that Charlie Parker doesn't play through change, he plays dominant. Well, I'm just showing you there that when you get dominant chords, basically A7, A7, D7, D7, Charlie Parker ignores the A7 and does his own thing, and there he's playing E minor 7. He's actually playing changes that are not actually marked in the Charlie Parker Omnibook. He's actually playing E minor 7, A7, A minor 7, D7 through the bridge section. So I'm not convinced when Barry Harris says that he's listened to a few things. I'm not saying he's a liar. I'm saying Barry Harris is almost certainly right what he said. That's what he's heard, because I know that Charlie Parker does do what Barry Harris says. But you can't make a blanket statement like that and say that's what he does all the time, because he doesn't. In this case, on Anthropology, he's actually playing through changes. He's playing D minor, A7, A minor 7, D7. Okay. So that's all I want to say about that. So I'll see you in the next one, and we'll move forward. Okay.